So this is the next phase of the final. So what you already did was you drew your photo reference down on your paper by using a grid. So the way I got rid of the grid was I went in, I darkened up all the lines, all the contour lines of all the edges of all the values. And then with the kneaded eraser, I went and lifted off or lightly scrubbed off, right? Some like wherever I saw the grid lines. And what happened was, the way it works is I pretty much get rid of the grid lines. You can still see like little remnants of them, but I pretty much get rid of all of them. But since I made the lines, the contour lines darker, they also get erased a little bit, but I could still see where they are. So I still know where my drawing is, where the edges of my forms are. So that's a little tip on that. But the next phase is what we're going to be doing is using the India ink that came in your kit. So the black India ink, water, and a brush. So you can use there's that brush in your watercolor set that would work good. So anyway, you can put a little bit of ink here. And so the way I want to approach this with the ink is the same way I would do with watercolor, meaning I want to start in the lighter areas first and then do the darker areas last. Once ink is dry on paper, that's it. That's as dark as it's gonna be. You can't lighten it up. We're not using. It's not like acrylic or oil paint, where we're going dark and then being able to put like highlights over it. So like if you think back to the spray paint one where we use acrylic white for the highlights, you can't do that with the ink. So it's a one-way street. It's light to dark. So what I want to do is the ink, when I first pour it out, is going to be really black. So I want to put some water down. So I was grabbing some water, putting like a little puddle, then grab a little bit of ink and then mix it in. And see how that gave me kind of a gray? So this is what I want to start with. I want to start with something really light. So I'll start with this, and this way, if I end up filling it in places where it needs to be darker, it's fine. I could just go darker ink over it. So it gives me that flexibility. So I'll kind of go through and just kind of start with the details. So like let's start on this nose. Got a highlight there. And so a way to think about this is like doing an underpainting almost. And an underpainting is kind of like you're laying down the framework, like the foundation of what the drawing is going to be. But this will all get covered up later. So that's why it's an underpainting. Like it'll all be painted over, or in this case, drawn over. And so I can look at edges, like this side of the face is really light, but then this is darker. So I'll put a little more ink into that mix. And so it's almost like paint like numbers for your values, because if you did your drawing right, you should have shapes to all your values. And so this stage, I'm just going in and filling in those shapes with the corresponding value. And so you could do some techniques, some blending on the paper. So I could do this, almost like I could put that in light gray and then take a little bit, because this gets really dark on the shoulder, and take the dark gray, almost the black, go over it. Kind of like the watercolor techniques. You could use those with the ink. So you could blend wet into wet. You could also layer it, you know, like layer the same light value over. Things that I know that are dark, I could fill in. You know, like I know that nostril's dark. Most of this nose. And I can blend the areas, the edges of it as it comes out. See, this way if I go light, there's this darker value here. I could do that the whole area first and then put in this darker value over it. So that's what this phase of the final is all about, is just getting rid of the white space, just filling it all in with either, you know, blacks or grays, whatever you need. And it's alright if it doesn't look perfect, because you're gonna, the next layer is the charcoal that you're gonna go over. And that'll be where you kind of, you render things like details out. So. So if things are a little fuzzier, you can sharpen them up later with the charcoal. Or if they don't blend as nice as you want, you can, with the charcoal later, you could blend it a little bit, but, you know, blend it more smooth. So I get the texture of the eyebrows. Kind of use just a bunch of short strokes, almost like hatching. Same kind of thing. And then just like maybe bulk up the middle so it's a little more solid in the middle. I kind of lose this edge of the eyebrow into the shadow. So again, get that texture of like the hair by using like the point of the brush almost like a stamp. Get little strokes. So some things you could be really detailed about this, because I know this part is going to be hard to do with charcoal, like to really get those edges, but I could get it really sharp with the brush. And it's just, you know, it's mostly just black, so it's just like really dark. It doesn't need like the blending that I get from charcoal. So some things, according to your picture, might be better rendered in ink, and some might be better rendered in charcoal. You know, you have to kind of figure out what you're trying to get and what the tool does, and then use the tool, you know, for whatever is going to give you the best effect. So in this case, the hair is like the brush gives me that good texture. All right, and I'm just gonna switch to something a little bit thicker just to speed this up a bit on this guy. Because like this is all a really dark area. So and the same techniques that you would use with the watercolor work with the ink, so kind of working off that wet edge so you don't get like the edges of your brush strokes to stand out too much. That helps, you know, because then as it dries, it all kind of dries uniformly. So, and you know, you have to work pretty fast too. Oops, smack the camera. And so these highlights, I'm just gonna leave lighter, just like leave the white of the paper. And what I'm gonna do is after I get all this black in, I'll water down this ink a little bit and get a gray, and then kind of go over the whole thing, like wash over the whole area. Because it won't affect the black, but it'll just fill in those white highlights just to be kind of the right amount of gray. And I'm working much smaller than you guys, you know, so I can kind of speed it up a little bit more. But you guys, you're using the 18 by 24 mixed media paper. That's those loose sheets of white paper that were in your kit. And that paper will take, because it's mixed media, it'll take the ink a lot better than my my sketchbook paper is taking it right now. It'll look a lot better on there, on your guys's. So, all right. So that's like kind of the big areas filled in. And just to speed this up, I'm going to use more of this bigger brush. Because all this area is kind of like a light gray, so I'll make a mixture of water and ink. I'm just going to fill that in. And you can see, I could still see the edges of the values where they should be. So same with the forehead, and this is all pretty much gray. And see, like when I go over the black eyebrow, it's still, nothing changes there because it's already dry. All right, and then the background is kind of a gray, so I'll put the same kind of light gray over it all. So there really shouldn't be any white paper except if there's like, you know, the white of the reflection of the eye. Like I'll leave that. But yeah, you could do some gradation. You can start with some dark, add some water. Kind of blend it over. This side over here is going to be probably that same dark. And just add a little water so it gets a little bit lighter as it gets closer. See, like this stroke, like this won't happen with your paper. It should blend a lot smoother. All right. Dark. That's why it's underpainting, so you'll go over it later. So. And so you sort of just build up these layers of washes to get it to the right gray. So this should be dry now. I could go over the ear. So even then, it's still a little bit light. Do another layer so it's a little more subtle. All right, this is it's like this shadow is pretty strong. I could put a little more gray. It's my cat Frankenstein. I think he's getting hungry. So in this area, it's kind of just like this dark chunk. I could take a little more black ink and just give it like the core of the shadow in here and give it more dimension. So this is what I mean about working light to dark. So the last thing you're doing is putting like the core of the shadows in of everything. makes everything a little bit deeper if your dark values have multiple values in them, or if all your values have multiple values in them. So like the inside of the mouth, if I make it darkest, kind of closest to the tongue, then it kind of makes it seem like there's a little more depth in there. Right, so you'll probably also want to take breaks and let it dry a little bit, so you're not all, sometimes it's good to work wet into wet, but then other times you want all those values underneath to be dry. So you could put in your details and not have them kind of bleed out like that, right? Sometimes you want, like that one I kind of want to bleed out because it's kind of soft, but then other things that are going to have a sharper edge, like maybe over in this chin, this is kind of dry. So you don't have to get it all done in one sitting. It's going to be helpful to have some things wet into wet, some things dry over the dry parts. So I would say anything that has like kind of a strong edge, you want to be dry underneath. Anything you want it to blend more, then it's probably easier doing wet. So it's just layer after layer. What's good about ink is, it's transparent, so you could build it up. So you could kind of plan ahead. You could make a plan of how those layers can add up to give you your multiple values. That's also kind of what makes it challenging, because you can see through and build things up. You kind of have to not go too dark in the beginning and screwed up so you can't get any light to come in over it. So, but I'm just going through wherever I could still see the edges of the values. I'm working on the, with the light value, and just taking down those edges so they blend over a little bit. It's like these wrinkles in the forehead. Right, so anywhere you see a line, like see on this edge of the nose, like there's a line showing that edge, like this is pretty much the same value here as it is there. I gotta look what is darker, what is lighter. And I'm just gonna make it darker outside the nose a little bit. See, so now I have like kind of a highlight on that nose. So anywhere, when you're going through and you're trying to figure out when you're finished with this phase of it, look to see anywhere you have where the line is showing the edge too much. Just blend some of the value off this line. Like I see this now, like this line kind of holds too much, so I'm gonna just pull a little bit of the value off of it and blend it into the space of the shirt from the chin. Then it's not so much of a line. Probably blend it even more. Alright, so this isn't done yet, but kind of get the idea. What I'll do is probably finish it up, and then when I post this, I'll also show the finished version of the ink. So, alright, there's more. Like this needs to all be darker. Like, so you can see the brush strokes. If I get a nice solid black, I won't see the brush strokes in here. So. But yeah, I think this is a good place to stop right about here. All right.